Welcome back to Switch to Linux. So I had a request to have a look at the current testing environment of Debian. And what I wanted to do is just kind of walk through how I set the system up. I was kind of doing this yesterday. It took quite a bit longer than I had anticipated, which is why I did not get a video up yesterday. I would say that there's probably a few bugs in the system to make it completely ready for prime time. But as far as the testing is concerned, it is moving along quite nicely. What we're going to do here is, let me just go right to their website. Let me do... keep above others. There we go. With Debian, if to run OBS, I would actually have to completely compile the system, and I don't want to do that. And so what I'm doing here is I'm going to just kind of ran my GUVC view. I can never say that. Alphabet soup. So I just ran that, and I opted to use the KDE desktop environment because the person who asked this did not specify which desktop environment, so I guess this is okay. Of course, I started to talk, so guess who showed up? Yeah, there's the kitty. All right. Okay, so we have a cat. All right, so next thing I'm going to do, and actually the reason I like running the GUCV view, that I can actually come in here and adjust my camera quite a bit better than I can on OBS and make things look a little bit nicer. And then, of course, with some desktop environments, you actually have the ability to remove the borders on certain windows, and this is one of them. This is actually one of the great things I liked about the Enlightenment desktop, is that you can have this same type of setup. So I can drag this guy around, I can move it around, whichever I want to do on the fly, and I can actually see what's on the camera, meaning I can monitor what you're seeing a little bit better, and and such. So with that, Debian, of course, this one's is a little bit more of an advanced system. It is one of the top Linux distros, obviously. I mean, this is what Ubuntu is based on, if you're unaware. And so, this is a very good, very stable system. It's one of the original Linuxies. There's a lot behind it, and it's just a very nice, very solid system. Of course, the main Raspberry Pi system is based upon Debian as well. Tails is based on Debian. So there's a lot of things the code base is used for. So the way they run their development and whatnot, the way they run everything is that they have their main stable release. And if you come over and have a look at the Get Debian, actually, I want to say it's... Yeah, so releases here is the page where they talk about what they're doing. So the stable is the one that is the officially released distribution that currently is out there, and they're on version 8, which is Jessie. And then they have an unstable, which is where active development occurs, and so they work on the various active development projects inside of that, and then as they are doing that, then they're going to slowly move things up into the testing, and the testing eventually will become the stable. And so that's the way they run this. So I'm running the testing version. I'm not running anything unstable here. This is the testing version. And the testing version, for the most part, seems to be pretty stable, pretty rock solid. So I went with the KDE desktop environment because the Debian with KDE was potentially it was number 2 on my list of potential builds for this new computer. And I finally did go with Linux Mint Cinnamon because I just knew it jived really well with my system. And as much as I love KDE, the main computer that I run KDE on is a little bit slower than I'd like it to be. Although I think that has a lot more to do with the fact that the hard drive is well over a decade old and very slow on read-write tests. So I don't blame KDE for that, just because to have a good comparison, I really want to run it on some very modern software or very modern hardware. So this distro is actually running on the same 32 gigabyte USB 3 flash drive that I do a lot of native testing distros on. And so it is working pretty nicely. And I did, when I update, or when I grab this, what I did run is the net installer. So if I come down here to the network install, this tells you how to do it. And I forget exactly how you got to the testing network installer. That was not it. I kind of had to hunt around for it a little bit. I think I came over here. Maybe it was this. I forget. I had to hunt around on the site. The Debian's website is not the easiest site to navigate, but I basically hunted around until I found where the network install was for the testing distro, and I grabbed the network install, which is only like a 300 megabyte file. So if you are on a lighter internet connection, then that is a good way to install this. And then from there, you basically you set everything up and you choose the desktop environment. And I forget all of the options, but there's KDE, there's the GNOME. Can't remember if Cinnamon is on the list. Let's just go back to the main get Debian, and we'll actually be able to see those. Okay, so Cinnamon, GNOME, KDE, LXDE, Mate, XFCE, and Standard is just the terminal. So those are your desktop environments, and even on the testing distro here, we have those. So we are doing this on this one because the person who asked me to do this this quick review of the testing version did not specify desktop environments, and this is the one I was thinking about running on my main system. I like the KDE desktop. It is pretty cool. There's some things about it that drive me a little batty, but for the most part, it's it's a pretty good distro. A couple things before we get started. If you want to try to install this, there does seem to be a problem with the network installer, and I'm going to go through after I'm done with the video and make any bug reports of any of this stuff, because this is a testing distro. And if you're saying that this is a testing distro, I do like to give people my feedback in addition to the video. The biggest problem, and a lot of people have said this is a problem, and I didn't see any solutions. I just hunted it down and discovered it last night. When you are running the net installer, and I went into the graphical mode, and I went through and allowed the thing to set up my partitions, what it did is it set up a I want to say it's like a 1 gigabyte partition as what they call the primary, and then it did a 31 gigabyte swap partition. And so it started the install, and then it failed about the time that it was going to install programs. And so you get to the about halfway through, and it says something to the effect of select and install the packages. And this is actually where you decide on your desktop environment. That part always seemed to fail. And so I tried to go on beyond it. I pulled the drive out, plopped it in some other computers, had a look at what was going on. And it came down to the fact that the auto installer was auto partitioning the drive to have 1 gigabyte of usable data, and the remainder of the drive, in my instance, ended up being a swap partition. So if you went back into the installer and you went down and set up your partitions manually, I set a 1 gigabyte boot partition, which is absolute overkill. You can usually get away with a couple hundred megabytes there. But that's just what I did for simplicity. I set up a 28 gigabyte primary ext4 partition, and I set up a 3 gigabyte swap partition. After doing that, ran the install, worked perfectly fine. It took I'd actually say about an hour and a half, I think, to install everything. Of course, with this type of install, you download just the basics to get the system running, and then you proceed forward to just download the packages that you want. So it downloaded about, I want to say it was like 1,600 additional packages once I got to that point, and that's the part that took the longest. It was about an hour alone just for the packages that it wanted to install. Of course, I had to install Simple Screen Recorder and GU's VC View, which were both in the software repositories. I opted not to use OBS, which I usually do, just because you have to compile OBS for Debian, and I did not want to go through the hassle of all of that. I left it pretty much uncustomized. The only things that I did do is I added my launcher buttons down here, and I added my minimize windows over here. And I think everything else, other than installing these two programs for the video, I think everything else I just kind of kept as it is. So the only other really noticeable thing right now, I had a look at the audio, I had a look at the video, everything seems to work, except when I was doing my first initial test run video, I'm like, I'm not getting any audio. Well, that's interesting. And so I transferred it over to another computer to test the audio, and the audio worked fine, the recording sounded fine, the audio sounded fine, everything was working just fine for me. So it took me a little bit, and I had to mess around here. And it turns out that with how I have this setting set up, and I'm not sure how or why this is happening because I did not even think it was possible. When I plug in my microphone, which is the Meteor mic from Samsung, it's running all of the audio back through the monitor on the Meteor mic. And if you read the reviews of this microphone, a lot of people are like, the headphone thing is silly, you can't run audio through it, and blah, blah, blah. I don't know why, but this system is running all of the audio back through the monitor and the mic. I didn't even think that was possible. But it is. And so if you are using a Meteor mic, or maybe probably some other mic at this point in time, when you plug it in, it's actually running everything back through the system there. So, and I'm not sure I can really show you what's going on there on the video here without messing things up. But you can see where all of my capture devices are. You can see this is the screen capture there. Let me just do a quick look at my monitor so you can see my audio here is working just fine on my monitor. So that's good. But what was happening is you could come in and you could set up more custom profiles on the audio, and when I did that, it was just not quite working right. And so that was a little bit goofy. And I'm not sure what the problem is, but there were so many different audio inputs and outputs going left and right. I could not make heads or tails of it at the moment. And so I just kind of left it as it was and said, okay, if I want to test something, I'm just going to unplug the microphone for now. And probably when I'm done with this, and actually probably tomorrow, or the next day, whenever I get a chance, I'm actually going to plug this in on my other system that's actually is a full KDE system. I'm going to see if the same thing happens, because I don't remember that happening. So I think that is something specific to the Debian install here. And the other one is Linux Mint KDE. So with that being said, we're just going to have a quick look at the packages that installed after I ran the basic installer installing KDE. Of course, a lot of the applications with this KDE comes with the desktop environment. So here's just a brief update. You'll see that my KDE Plasma version is 5.8.4. So it is, I believe that is the latest Plasma, which really excited me. And actually, that's the reason I did not run Debian on my production computer, is because the version of KDE on the actual stable Debian is still in the version 4, so it's not running Plasma yet. And if I was going to run KDE, I wanted it to be Plasma, because I ran my other KDE computer for about 3 weeks on the older version of KDE, and it was cool, but it didn't have the flashiness that that this system did. And so I really wanted to run, if I was going to run KDE, it had to be Plasma. And so this is running Plasma. You can see all of the other information here. We are running the kernel 4.9.01. And of course, you can see here my system specs. All right. So, what? No. Sheesh. All right. So here, looking at the applications, we have our formula editor, and we have, I guess, 2 instances of formula editor there. Under graphics, we have our document viewer to view various types of documents. LibreOffice is on here. GIMP the KDE image viewer, and Image Magic. As far as the internet applications, we have some FeedReader. Let's see, was it Copete Instant Messenger, which I've never actually used. The KDE Kmail client is actually very good. I usually install Evolution on my Linux computers because I like the older style unified inbox. Now, of course, if you look at your email, there's this older style unified inbox method, and there's the kind of newer, what you would look at now as your modern system, which separates every email address in its own folder and account. And each of those has its own uses and applications. Of course, I use the other ones like Thunderbird nowadays is that methodology where I use that for my online account. So if I have a Google account or a Hotmail account or whatever else, I'll use Thunderbird to manage all those to keep those accounts separate. But for my businesses, some of my clients have multiple different email addresses that I have because I have accounts, email set up for the ones that I give to business people. I have one set up with a name. I have one set up, all over the place. And so with that being said, I like the unified inboxes because the unified inboxes actually allows me to come in and just get the string of emails, and then if I need to sort them out, I'm going to sort them out by who they came from or where they're from or whatever else. And so I prefer that type of method. Well, the Kmail client pretty much does everything that Evolution does, and because of that, I really like the Kmail client. Much better than some of the other ones. See, we have Conqueror and Firefox installed on here by default. Multimedia, we have a disk burning utility. I installed Simple Screen Recorder and GUVC View. The music player was on here, and the Dragon player, the Juke. I'm not sure what my other KDE system has as far as music player. I think I installed Banshee. Whatever it was initially on there, I did not actually like. Maybe it was Juke, so I installed Banshee. Office, we have our contact managers. We have our LibreOffice. So you can see we have the base LibreOffice, then we have the various LibreOffice applications. We have our settings panel, our main system settings, and then our software management, and then printer configurations. Our main system, here's our bug tool reporter. Let's have a quick look at our system monitor. Okay, so here's what our system is doing right now, and keep in mind that we are recording a HD video. So there's what we're running right now. About a gig. Your Windows Meta Key does work for booting up or loading up your main window here, and of course on KDE you have three different versions of the menu. So this is the more modern one. I kind of like this new modern menu. It's pretty nice. But if you do want to change the menu, if you come over in most of these types of applications where there is an alternative, you can right-click it and click Alternatives, and then you can actually change this to a different type. So now if I hit my Meta Key, then I have this view here. Now, you can see the black back here. That's something I did not mention. My video crashed. Let's see if... It looks like everything's still running there, so that's good. Let me pull my video back up. There we are. Hey, we're back. All right, so we're going to come over here, hit no border, and then down here, if you want to know how to do this, I'm going to resize it ever so slightly. Just get rid of the black around either side. Click it, and then that'll be set, and then come over here and hit More Actions and Keep Above Others to keep your image up there. All right. The other option, oh, that's what I was going to say before that crashed. This operating system is also not compatible with my video card, and so I am running on my integrated graphics. And you know, I've run into this problem. Both of my KDE computers on both completely different systems, I don't have the nice transparent overlay anymore, meaning I'm seeming to have issues with the graphics cards. I have no idea what graphics is in my other one. It is whatever the integrated graphics card is on my cheap Lenovo. This one here, there is a Debian graphics driver, and I thought I had it laying around, and I looked for it, and I was not able to find it, and I actually just did not want to go through the hassle of hunting around for it online and looking for it again. So I did not bother installing the proprietary driver for this. It does exist. There's not an easy way to install a proprietary driver on Debian. Unlike Ubuntu or Mint or I think Elementary gives you the option, and I forget which other distros do or don't, but looking at those Ubuntu-based distros, they generally have the ability to install the proprietary drivers. This does not, unfortunately. So anyway, you can hunt around for that. Let me go ahead and show you the last alternative, the dashboard. I think this is the application launcher, so let's switch to the menu. Okay, so here is your more traditional type menu that you might be more used to. I think for a system as slick as KDE, I don't like this menu for this. I like this menu in other distros. XFCE, that's a great menu, but I actually kind of prefer to keep the application launcher menu as my main default menu here. So this menu here does give me, we have a favorites, which lists the things that we can add to this list, what we want. So when you first open it up, it goes right to your favorites. Our applications will give you all of the information. Your computer has your various places, locations. History is the things you've looked at, and then leave is your login, logout information. All right. So as far as let's have a quick look at the images that it gives us. Oh, that was the search function there. If I come over to configure desktop, you can see the various types of images. We have to click on these and click the apply to apply these. So lots of nice Debian images. This guy here looks quite colorful. So very basic wallpapers. Oh, that's neat. Let me just go ahead and I was looking for the one that said Debian 9 there, just so people know what we're doing if you come onto the video a little late or skip through. So there's how we can set up our wallpaper. Let me go into the settings so I can generally find this faster with the settings. So you have several different theming packs. I can't remember if I changed the icons or not. We do have several different icons to pick from. Most of the icons are more of your traditional icons. Not seeing the icons changing there. It's very possible they're not changing because I'm recording the video. I noticed that that type of thing occurs on several distros. I know on Fedora something doesn't apply right when you're recording a video. I think on my VirtualBox, Elementary does not allow you to change the desktop background if you're recording a video. This here, it looks like it's not allowing you to change the icons because I know some of these icons are different than the ones I'm seeing. So I think that's a result of doing the video. But over here, you can do your different icon sets. Let me open up File Manager. Okay, well, it seems to be applying them, so maybe I am incorrect. Maybe it is actually applying them correctly. Because those are the Oxygen icons. Those are the ones that I use on my other system. All right. I actually have an emoji section. How exciting. The pirate emoji. Arr. And you didn't see the ninja one, did you? So your desktop theme over here, you can select between different types of themes. Let's see if these apply. Yep, so these apply differently. This is the one that I like using on my system here, the Oxygen. I just like the skeuomorphism to it. So these guys here, there's your breeze, there's your breeze light. The air is the default one. I think the air's... Oh, no, air is not the default one. It is breeze is the default one, I'm pretty sure. Yep. So breeze is the default one there, I think. One of these is the default one. Then you can change from a light to a dark just by clicking this over here. And then you can get new icon or new themes and colors online. You can pick between 3 different installed mouse screens, and then your splash screen here. This actually allows you to change your main login screens. This is something that was actually broken on the previous version of KDE. I was very, very pleased when it came back. Now, the original login screen was okay. The new login screen is blindingly bright, and so you will want the ability to customize your original login screen. All right, so let's see. Inside of here, here's desktop effects. Screen edges if you want to set corners. This is kind of becoming a KDE walkthrough. Okay. All right. So... of course, in KDE, you have widgets, so you can come over here to your widgets. One of the things I like about this system is many distros have either a show desktop or a minimize all windows. You need to know there's a difference between them. So the show desktop, that will slide everything out of the way. But then if you go and you click on any window, it will pull everything right back. It's the same functionality that the Show Desktop has on a Mac, and it drives me mad. The Minimize All Windows is the basic default on a Windows type system. That will, when you click it, it pushes all windows to a minimized state, so you can pull them up one by one. Of course, since you know I like to work off the desktop, I prefer that minimize all windows because I can minimize everything, do something on the desktop, and then pull up the window I want. Well, on a Mac, if I show the desktop and then try and do something on the desktop, and then everything will pop up all over the screen. But the cool thing about KDE is that it gives you that choice. So I have set, of course, the minimize all windows, but again, if you right click this, you should have the option. Maybe we do not have the option on this one. If you don't have the option to actually change it, I thought you did, you do have the option to show the desktop. So you can see here, if I just do a search for show desktop, we have the option minimize all windows, and the one up here means that I have one instance of this running. The other option is to show desktop, which I do not have running. So that is something. And another thing with KDE, if you want to get rid of the widgets icon on the bottom of the toolbar here, what you need to do is right click and lock widgets, and that will cause that to go away. And I like that function because I like throwing the mouse to the bottom corner, clicking and minimizing all windows. It's kind of a default. So as far as working with this, I've done some searches online. I've done just a little bit of software testing and playing with things. I've looked around at the system quite a bit, and I can say overall it's very stable. Other than the weird audio issue that I've encountered, everything else seems to work just fine. So although this is not a release, it is release candidate 2. I will say that as well. This is the release candidate 2, and I want to say that this was released in February. And with that being said, overall, it's a nice system. It seems pretty stable to me. It installed, once I got over that installing hiccup with the swap partition, everything installed right up. You can choose your desktop. You can play with it, customize it. And again, this is running on my USB 3 hard drive. So that's that. Overall, I like the distro. It's pretty nice. It does have just enough system utilities. I think I had to, let's see. I'm trying to remember if this is the distro I was trying to install disks on. Yeah, it was, I think. I'm pretty sure. I can't remember now. I was trying to install some software somewhere. I think that was Elementary the other day. I play with too many of these things. Let's look at the software manager real quick. I thought this looked new. It did not look familiar to me. So over here, let's see. This is more like this is actually not the one I was thinking of. This looks more like kind of like a hybridized synaptic type approach. There is another software installer on here, I'm pretty sure. That's the one I just had. Software Center. This looked new to me. And parts of it I really liked, and parts of it I thought was a little crazy. I don't remember my other KDE system looking like this, nor do I remember Debian looking like this. So I'm not sure if this is new, or maybe I'm just possibly mistaken. I just don't know. But I thought that this was a pretty cool system. It's it's a lot more modern. It has a lot more information. We can still do searches. Here's your accessory type approaches, education tools, your graphics, and then of course you can always search. So there's Blender. So this is what I used to install the software packages I wanted to install. Yeah, maybe this was it. Let's see if this helps if I spell GNOME disks right. So you can see here that the software manager here, or the, what do they call this one? The software installer is a very nice system. It's very modern, very slick looking. It gives you nice highlight effects, color over. It's pretty easy to find the things. Oh, look at that. The Dilbert comic. Let's go ahead and, no, so these are all widgets. I think I remember seeing Garfield. Go install that, right? Calvin and Hobbes. Ode to those who like Calvin Hobbes. So those actually should be widgets. Let me just have a quick look. So we're going to unlock widgets, and we're going to have a look at widgets. Let's look. Maybe I was incorrect about those being widgets. Let's just have a quick look. That's where they were. There you go. There's some Dilbert, there's some Garfield right on your desktop. All right, yeah, that's one of the cool things about KDE. You have these widgets, you can put things. Of course, one of the potential downsides for me is KDE is a lot harder to work off the desktop, but if you check out my video where I'm looking at my KDE on Linux Mint, I have overcome that by adding the folder icons. So if you come over here and I just want to say it's a folder view, you can actually drop a folder view on these, and when you drop the folder view, then you can actually manage anything. And so what I did on my other computer is I dropped a folder on here, and then I'd have one for work, I'd have one for my main stuff. So it actually allowed me to organize things pretty nicely. I have to install this on my other system. I'd love to turn on my computer and have a Garfield strip, maybe a Dilbert strip when I start up. That's pretty neat. Cool. All right, so that is the Debian current testing distro in a nutshell. As far as the KDE is concerned, overall seems pretty stable. A little bit of a hiccup in the installer, which hopefully I talked you through how to overcome that if you're trying to do that. And I imagine if you actually go and download the full thing, then it may not. The problem is that would be like 8 gigabytes. I was like, I'm not doing that. You have to do that all on DVDs and then install it on a DVD or whatever. And then, of course, the audio is being a little bit goofy. Other than that, I have not noticed any other major issues. I have not had any system crashes. It was the first time I tried to connect it onto my internal LAN network to grab a file. It did connect a little bit slower than I thought it would, but other than that, I didn't have any other hiccups. And of course, it's not supporting my graphics card, which actually I knew it would not. The previous version did not either, except I did get that working by installing the proprietary drivers. So with that, that's just a quick walkthrough of the Debian testing edition right now. With that being said, me and the kitty will both say,
thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux. Ha 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 ha. I'm gonna go rule the world now with my cute belly.
all right, so have a great night, everybody.